and roll with it. Make a pick and roll with it. Betting weekly. Fast break. From coast to coast and way downtown. From coast to coast and way downtown. From coast to coast and way downtown. Make a pick and roll with it.
Welcome into the latest edition of Betting Weekly Fast Break on this Friday. I am Doug Kezirian alongside professional bettor Chris Macero, who's on the move himself. He is in Boston, his native Boston, that is, and of course, still absorbing the setback of the Celtics this postseason. But we have another game in the Eastern Conference Finals after the Knicks stave off elimination at home, covering easily a rocking chair win, wire to wire, as they take down the Pacers, and which was Indiana's worst game of the series, clearly. So we will have a game 6 tomorrow in Indy. We'll break that down coming up. Also, check out the WNBA card with 5 games in the W tonight. Chris, you're on the move, but obviously keeping tabs on everything going on.
Yeah, it was a hectic day yesterday. I started the day in Vegas. I drove to San Diego, hopped on a plane last night after the Knicks Pacers debacle, and ended up in Boston this morning. Was lucky enough to check in a little early. So, yeah, I'm ready to go. We don't have any games tonight, but we've got the WNBA, like you mentioned. But Game 6 is very interesting. The Pacers going to, bounce back. They, played well at home, although they did lose Game 3. It was a total, they laid an egg last night, no doubt about that. You could kind of tell the energy level was super low early. They weren't defending well. I mean, the Knicks didn't even shoot it that great, and
Right.
from 3, I mean, they just had a lot of wide open shots. Anunoby was 1 for 7. If it wasn't for Brunson, who was 4 for 7 from 3, the rest of the team was 4 for 22. So it's not even like the Knicks shot that great, and they still blew them out. There was just, besides Benedict Mathurin, who we've mentioned on the show a couple of times, we've had him for props. We've had him on the wrong games. He's gone over his point total in the last 2 games. Unfortunately, I had him on the first 2 games. But if it wasn't for him, I mean, this was a pretty poor effort. I mean, game 4, they're anointing Halliburton as the next superstar, and then he comes out and he has 3 shot attempts in the first half. One of them was a 35-foot 3 at the end of the second quarter to end the half. So you can't even really count that. He's not involved in the game at all. Wasn't moving the ball. Wasn't moving without the ball. Very timid. Very confusing on what happened with Halliburton. So there's a lot of questions moving into Game 6, and we'll see who's going to step up and who's going to, are we going to go to a Game 7, or are the Pacers going to close this thing out?
Yeah, I know, and the game goes way under too. We'll touch on the total in a sec. I first want to sort of break things up because we've seen a lot in this series, and as we know from recreational bettors, they sort of overreact to what they last saw, but there was adjustments. The Knicks were pressuring Halliburton close, farther away from the hoop, meaning earlier as he's bringing the ball up the court. But you mentioned that they laid an egg. I agree. It was just a kind of like wipe the slate clean performance. Pacers maybe played tight, kind of dangled carrot, if they will, knowing that they were 1 win away from the finals. Just in general, at home, what do you expect from Indy to start Game 6, and from an emotional standpoint and just crispness standpoint?
Well, I think they have to play faster. I don't understand the way they were bringing the ball up in the first quarter of the next game last night. It just did not seem like the same pace or just the same energy level where they're moving the ball, they're getting an open 3, and they're taking them. The first 5 minutes of the game, few guys were passing up open looks, which was confusing to me considering they were just so on fire these previous games. Why would you change the style you're playing? And we all saw the interview after the game where, Greg Doyle's trying to get a rise out of Pascal Siakam. And, he just said, well, they played harder than us. And, he's just being honest. And it looks like that's the truth. They just didn't have that effort. You could see, like you mentioned, the Knicks defenders, coming out in attacking Halliburton earlier in the shot clock, they're using Landry Shamet and McBride and getting guys up in their space where they're uncomfortable. They're not able to get those easy looks from three. So I don't know. Is that energy level from the Knicks going to be able to sustain in Game 6 on the road without the MSG crowd? That's a big question. I don't know. You tend to think not, based on the early line movement of this game. For some reason, Pacers were only laying 2 in Game 4. Now they're laying 4 in Game 6, which is kind of confusing because they look so bad in Game 5. But sometimes, the people, who are betting these games, high amounts of money, seem to know which way the game's going to go. And you kind of tend to think that at home, the Pacers should be able to close them out with that home crowd, but you're going to have a lot better efforts from some of the big-time guys on the Pacers. Halliburton, Siakam, Miles Turner. Some of these guys just did not show up to play last night.
Okay, so we expect energy to bounce back. I mean, the Pacers can almost write off some of the lethargic sort of performance, just tightness. Wes Reynolds was on the show yesterday. He encouraged first half under 109.5, was waiting for 110. That was way under just because the Indy offense was bad all game. Second half also went under if you were into that. I thought the Knicks adjustments were smart, but is it sustainable? That's the question. And you mentioned the point spread. I did not understand Game 4. I was on the Pacers on this show. It got there. We had money line as well with Wes. Here we are for Game 6. I can't get involved. For me, I lean Pacers, but the number feels right. The spot favors Indy. Number feels right. I would pass at -4. What about you?
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I'm probably not gonna get involved, as I do have Pacers from before the playoffs at 25-1. So I'm hoping that I want to just get through to it because I don't want to go to a Game 7 where you have to take a little bit more of a position on the Knicks at a worse number. If anything, maybe I take a little dabble on the Knicks plus the points. And the only reason I don't think that the Pacers are 100% a cinch to close this out is what I just mentioned. The Knicks did not shoot the ball well from three. If they had shot the ball from three well last night, they would have won the game by 40 points. So you got to figure there's got to be some shooting regression from the Knicks, but at the same time, the Knicks have a slighter rotation. The guys have played a lot of minutes. They might be tiring out. The legs might be tired from, they don't have the legs to shoot the threes. And Brunson's just the guy that keeps carrying him. But it really comes down to me that, Halliburton, are you going to be the superstar, or are you going to show up like Anthony Edwards did the other night and just completely no-show? You're not even getting any shots off, shot attempts. You're not making any threes. You're not driving to the hole. And like I mentioned, Benedict Matherin's the only reason the game wasn't a complete blowout. The guy was +8, 23 points. He was 9 for 9 from the line. I mean, how Tyrese Halliburton is only 2 for 7, over 2 from 3, a -23 with only 8 points when you're supposed to be the star of the team after you just got anointed the next great superstar in Game 4. I have no idea. I'm just very confused by his effort and lack of a solid game.
So yeah, it's a pass. Even in a vacuum, you'd pass. I think you're right about the regression. I think the Knicks are going to play better. Look, a lot of this series comes down to Game 1, right? Now, obviously, the series would play out differently if the Knicks had won Game 1 when they were up 17. But maybe they're not as desperate in Game 3. Things like that. I get it. You can't just go back and change one game. But when two teams are evenly matched, and I do think Indy's better, but it's an evenly matched series, all things considered. Game 1, because I said that means you have to win 5 out of 7. That's just not going to happen, but maybe it is. Maybe they are going to eke it out. We'll see about Game 6. The pressure's all on Indy. Knicks started to play well the last couple games. I even thought they played well in the Game 4 loss in that game. So I'm not getting involved here. I mentioned the total. Game 5 went way under. There's been an adjustment of about 5 points, 4 points on the total that was in Game 5. What's your read on this Game 6 total?
I would lean over. I know that's a big move, and you figure these games it's going to be tight. They're going to be maybe trying to play a lot of defense, but I just feel like the crowd, the energy of the crowd in Indiana is going to really benefit. Some of these guys who had bad games, and you're going to expect that they're going to bounce back. After having those bad games, I expect Halliburton to have a big game. I expect Siakam to have a big game. I expect Miles Turner to have a better game. Some of these guys were. They're embarrassed. We've talked about that before. If you get embarrassed, a good angle is to come back the next game. You play that team. So you got to figure even after that press conference, Siakam actually didn't play that bad. He was only a -1. He got his 15 points, which he usually gets. He wasn't a hard he wasn't the reason why they got blown out. So I would kind of tend to go over. I've been on the over a couple times in the series where it hit. I wasn't involved last night on the total at all. But I feel like both teams didn't shoot the ball well at all from three. And I mentioned before on the show that the Pacers need to shoot the ball at a higher rate than it's usually 32%. Last night they were at 33%. It's just not really cutting it. They got to be, mid to high 30%, 40%, and they roll in these games. So I expect them to shoot the ball better. I expect the Knicks to hit a few more threes. So if anything, I would be on the over in this game. I know when the games get tight, 6 and 7, it sometimes tends to lean to the under. But I think with the energy and the fact that we haven't had great shooting the last game by both teams, I would be leaning towards the over. I don't have a bet on it, but if I was going to be on it, I would be leaning towards the over.
Yeah, I mean, look, it had 251 points 2 games ago. So we can't just be prisoners of the moment and fixate on the last game. Like you said, series tend to go down as the series go on. But this is a Pacers team that does legitimately want to live up to its name and push the pace. They are at their best when they are in fact pushing pace. And they're gonna stretch and kind of speed up the Knicks, picking them up full court. You mentioned that you don't think it's a cinch that Indy closes things out. What about the series price? So Knicks on the money line are plus 145. Okay. Obviously, they're going to be favored if we get a game seven. They're plus 280 to handle their business at game seven if to win the next 2 games. So any interest there? I know you have futures in Indy, but in a vacuum, do you think this Knicks team is game seven's there if they take care of business in game six? I don't. I actually like the Pacers in game seven if it goes there because I just think it's really hard to win and cover 3 straight games. But the plus 280 is tempting if you're a Knicks backer and you like their chances in game six.
Well, you could also play it both ways, and I like to do this. I know some people don't like to hedge, but I like to monetize when I can. And if you like the Knicks to win tomorrow, why not take them at plus 280? And then if you want to come back with the Pacers plus the points later in game seven, you can.
Ooh.
You can play it both ways. For someone like me who and I'm a big future parlay guy, as most people know if you've been following me at all. So in a situation where I have the Pacers, and I didn't do it the other night, and I'm kind of kicking myself, but I actually thought the Pacers were just the better team throughout the series, and I thought they had a chance to close the Knicks out the other night, but I was wrong. But what I'd like to do, if you have a nice position on Pacers, like I do at 25-1, I do already have some bets on the Knicks in the series, so I'm going to make money either way. But I could take an additional bet on the Knicks plus 280, and I like to tie it to something down the road, maybe a baseball future for the AL, the NL, a division bet, an NFL. All the NFL and college football lines are out now. So if you like a college football team, you can, maybe you just put the Knicks in your back pocket. Hey, they come back and beat you in the series, but hey, maybe I tied it to say Alabama or a Clemson or a team you like in college football to win the national championship. And then down the road, instead of having Ohio State at 6-1, you have them at 25-1. So just something I like to do to build your portfolio throughout the year. And if you have a position where you're going to make money no matter what, 25-1 on the Pacers for the East, why not dip in a little bit, take a little money off the top. You're still going to make money no matter what, but then you have a nice ticket down the road for, say, NFL, baseball, NFL, college football, whatever it is.
So I've talked to you about it, and I've learned a lot having that discussion. A large reason for that is to lock up a future price now and tie it in rather than roll it over. You're probably going to get the same price, right? If you just bet the Knicks and then roll it over, take the winning ticket if it wins with that future. But the key is to lock it up if it's a second sort of price that's going to change. Like in this case, I don't know, the Oilers in the Stanley Cup or something like that. That might change between now and the end of Game 7, right?
Yeah, correct. Well, you just want to be able to grab the best possible number that might not be well, how about this scenario? And I'm not wishing injury on anybody. What if the Knicks win in a close game, but Tyrese Halliburton turns his ankle in the fourth quarter, and next thing you know, the Knicks are favored by 10 or whatever it is. Instead of being favored by five, they're favored by 9.5. So then you got an extra value if you want to come back with the Pacers. So you just never know the scenario. I wouldn't just, if I was going to bet the game, I would not just take the money line on the Knicks for the game. I would definitely play it in the series because you figure they're going to be big favorites. They might even be more than 5-point favorites, in game 7. figuring, hey, it's game
Right.
six in New York. They're not going to lose back-to-back years game sevens to the same team.
Buyer beware on just automatically assuming the Pacers take care of business. I think there's a little pause for concern. Let's get back to game 6 in terms of the props. Now, we've seen some guys be pretty consistent with their props. I was on Halliburton last game because I thought he'd at least rack up assists, which he did. He got to 6 after it's just an incredibly slow start. So I'm leaning towards going back to Halliburton at home off the bad performance, sort of a buy low, if you will. What stands out to you? I'll tee you up first. What stands out to you in terms of game 6 um, props?
Well, the three guys I mentioned before, Halliburton, Pascal Siakam, and Miles Turner, I wanted to look at those three guys. That's how the team goes. These other guys that pop in here and there. I know Neesmith, defensive wizard. He only played 14 minutes, and he gets hot from three sometimes. So hopefully he'll be rested. You might want to look at some angles with him just because he didn't play a lot in Game 5. But what I wanted to look at was Siakam, Halliburton, and Miles Turner. And if you looked at Siakam, he had two big games. In Game 2, he had 38. Game 4, he had 30. Halliburton had two big games. Game 1, he had 31. Game 4, he had 32. So maybe you could do like something kind of crazy. You could play both these guys over plus 25 points. I'm not sure if I'm going to do this, but I think one of them is going to have a big game, at least one of them. So maybe you get both because in Game 4 you got both of them. So over 25 points for both of these guys is nice plus money. So if you only got one of them to go off, which I think one of them will at home, game 6, you got to figure one of the two stars is going to go off. So you split, you still make a profit. Maybe you get lucky like a game 4 where they both go over that number. But what I'm really looking at is Miles Turner. This guy had an absolute zero stat line last night, 5 points. He was negative 20 something on the net rating. He only had 2 rebounds, just a really terrible performance. But if you look back post All-Star break, there's been 4 times when he's had less than a double-digit scoring. And each time after that, he's come back with a big game. Back on March 19th, he had 9 points. March 20th, he came back with 23. March 24th, he only had 7 points, came back with 16 points the next game. Game 3 against Milwaukee, he only had 6 points, came back game 4, 23 points. So since the break, the last 3 times he's been under, it wasn't 4. Last 3 times he's been under double digits. He's come back with a big game going over his point total. So his point total at Bet Rivers is 13.5 minus 117. I really like Miles Turner in a buy low spot where he's been single digits, comes back strong the next game. I think it's a good trend for him. I think he's going to have a good game. He's averaged very good points against the Knicks. He just last game, and he's just had a little bit of struggle lately. I'm just not sure what that is. But I figure at home he's going to get back into a little bit of a groove. And I think I said, like, these guys get a little bit embarrassed. They have a lousy game on a big stage. They want to come back with a big effort. And I think buying low on Miles Turner at 13.5 points over is a good play for tomorrow night.
I certainly believe in that, and we've seen Wes talk about that in some buy lows. That was on Pajemski in a couple rounds against the Rockets and T Wolves, and I mean that's the key because there's going to be an ebb and flow to this series, and there's certainly opportunities where you can jump in. And certain guys you just think you're going to bounce back, like you say, they get a little embarrassed. They don't get to the NBA by being a punching bag or tomato can, whatever you want to call. So I do think guys will respond in that capacity. The guy I think is going to respond is in my play is Towns. He's gone just 1 made 3 each of the last 2 games, but before that, he was chucking a lot of attempts. So I think I'm going to go back to Towns, and the juices cooperated and come down for over 1.5 threes or 2+ threes made for Karl Anthony Towns at minus 127. So that's going to be my prop. Turner obviously has been getting beat off the dribble a bunch. Towns has been attacking the rack, hoop and harm, all that good stuff. So I think Towns is going to look to shoot. I'm fine with him being on the road versus home, that kind of thing. So I'm going to roll with Karl Anthony Towns over 1.5 threes made in game 6 at minus 127. Any thoughts there?
Any concern just on the knee that maybe that's why he hasn't got the shooting rhythm and the legs? Maybe that's just the issue.
I mean, if anything, like it's going to make him less likely to drive, right? But the minutes didn't go down. He played 36 minutes, had 24 and 13, had 4 attempts from 3. I mean, that's kind of what you want. I mean, I guess I want 5 attempts to make 2 threes, but for the most part, like I'm okay with how he looked and how he felt out there or what he looked to have felt out there.
No, he looked great. He had an unbelievable night. He was plus 24 or something in the net rating. So the guy is guys, for someone who was supposed to be hurt, it was pretty evident early that he wasn't hurt. If you were on the Pacers like I was. So yeah, no,
Talk about
I,
consistent. Talk
I
about
was
consistency. Literally 24 points in 3 straight games.
yeah, I mean he's definitely been the I would think if they came back and won the series, he might have to be the series MVP, even though Brunson puts up the bigger numbers. But I mean, if it's not for Towns, I mean they're not in this spot at all. He's played fabulous. He's been great. And I don't know if you guys saw the Charles Barkley comment about the why you get all those damn fouls. And he was just laughing. Oh, God only knows. It's just like if he could ever stay out of foul trouble, the guy could be just an unbelievable talent. I mean, he is talented as it is, but just the goofy fouls he sometimes gets and puts his team in
Right.
positions where they got to take him out of the game early. And for a guy who looks like he's belabored and kind of goofy out there, he seems to play a lot of minutes and he's just get banging around. It's kind of like you watch Jokic, he goes up and down the court. He looks like he's tired, but guy has a motor, and so does Towns. They're just very impressive big guys, even though they look a little awkward.
Funny you mention conference finals MVP. I just calling up the odds right now at Bet Rivers. Remember, the Knicks are plus 280 to come back and win the series. He's 20 to 1. Any interest there? Or, I mean, Brunson's only plus 320. So Brunson's only a little bit more than the money line. So I wouldn't get cute with plus 320 with Brunson. I would just play the Knicks plus 280.
Yeah,
That's
I
my
agree.
opinion.
No, I
Yeah.
agree. It'd be
But but
definitely.
but if
I
you
think
like Towns,
definitely worth a shot. 20 to 1. Why
yeah.
not? That's the guy has been the most consistent player in the series. I mean, people still might remember they took Brunson out. The two big runs they had, he was off the court. He was standing there, like, whoa, why am I not going back in the game? Maybe voters think about that. I think I mean, they love Brunson in New York, but I think they love Cat almost just as much. So I think that's a pretty good value. I might actually, you know what? That's actually not a bad way to, maybe do a little bit of a different hedge if you have the Pacers in a series. Hey, maybe Towns has a big game and maybe Brunson, only puts up 19 points tonight on the road. Maybe you got a nice little extra ticket for yourself. 20 to 1, that's pretty
I
good
think
value.
it's worth the difference. Like I said, when you compare the Knicks money line to win the East, it's plus 280 versus Brunson plus 320 to win conference finals MVP. Not worth the gamble. 20 to 1, I think it's worth because the reason is the distribution in the index bet, you have to offer a couple guys like OG at 250 to 1, Bridges 500 to 1, Josh Hart 500 to 1. And then the non Halliburton Pacers as well. Siakam's plus 600. I would not bet that. I think it's going to be Hallie, but I understand why he was the third favorite. But I think the Towns market is a little off. I would have made Towns like 10 to 1, not 20 to 1, maybe 9 to 1 even.
No, I'm surprised when you said that because I mean, who else would it be? It's not going to be. It's either Brunson or it's Towns. It's almost kind of interesting that Siakam and Halliburton, they did have two big games, but the other games they're just not. The numbers really aren't there. So it's I don't think they're not gonna give the it's not gonna be like Jerry West where they're giving the losing team the conference MVP, but it's there needs to be another game. We talked about this earlier where you need to have maybe three good games. I don't think you can just win it with two good games. You need at least three. So someone has to step up. That's why I think I'm not sure if I'm going to play it or not, but I think I might have a little bit of money on Siakam and Halliburton over 25 points. Both of them get nice plus money. Pretty sure one of them is going to get 25 points, and maybe you get lucky and get both of them.
Just a reminder, the Betting Weekly newsletter is awesome. It was 32 pages the last check. Soccer previews, tennis previews with the French Open going on. You have links to the podcast here on the Bet Rivers Network, all the betting odds from Bet Rivers. Go check it out and sign up, bettingweeklystudios.com. And also links to other podcasts under the Betting Weekly umbrella, like the Betcast for the Champions League final tomorrow. 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Steve, Dan, and Jack will be live. And then the tons of French Open picks and angles and Betting Weekly game bet and match and Betting Weekly WTA. All the tennis handicappers that do such a great job. And you got tennis action all day and night. So it's really cool to get some sort of tips and insight before you fire on some some plays. We'll get into the W momentarily. Chris, wanted to get your early reaction. Congratulations, by the way, on all your Thunder futures. It got there. A little sweaty in the second round, but you got there. And you got there with relative ease thanks to game four win. But the Thunder minus 770 in this to win it all. I understand they're going to have home court. I understand the metrics and everything, all the advanced analytics love them. Does it feel high given what we've seen from OKC so far?
It does feel high when considering what you've seen from OKC. But when you watch these other two teams, do you really think they could beat OKC? It just seems like there's too many stagnant moments for both the Knicks and the Pacers where they can't string together three straight great games or three straight good games. There's either, one great game followed by a clunker, followed by another great game, followed by a clunker. And I just think that the depth and the defense and the overall talent level of SGA, Jalen Williams, Chet, even your boy Chet, who you're not a big fan of, but he's come to play the last few games. I've really been impressed by how Chet has played, especially in game four. I thought that was probably one of his best games of his career. It just I think the Pacers are going to definitely get a game just because they heated up from three. Halliburton has a monster game. Siakam has a big game. I think maybe they could even get two games, but I just don't see it based on how good the defense is for OKC and the fact that the Pacers sometimes forget how to play defense. And I think it'll be a kind of a nightmare with all the action that OKC shows on offense. I really think it'd be a tough game, a tough bet for Pacers to get four. But it does seem high because who the heck really wants to lay 800? But
it seems high until you don't want to take the dog.
Yeah, but I said that I said that too with the Celtics series, and you could tell immediately that number was wrong, and I'm kind of kicking myself. I didn't have a little bit extra on the Knicks, but it's the same number. It's like the Pacers. The OKC's minus 800 versus 750 versus Denver, and that was almost game went to 7 games. Denver could have won. I mean, who knows? Celtics are minus
up 2-1 in game four, now live on the money line on game four in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, all it takes for the series price and for the the view of it being like, oh, there's no way OKC can lose is they just lose one of the games at home, and then everyone's talking, oh, maybe they can lose. So I just, if you have a position on the Pacers for the finals, I would try to get, I think I'm not sure if you asked this to somebody the other day, like how would you try to hedge that? You kind of need to say, hey, you take OKC and maybe you find something in a different sport, that's also a favorite, and you link it up and you just bring the odds down. You try to get yourself where the OKC part of it helps to even get the thing to even money. So I don't know. I can't see Indiana win 4 games. I mean, they might not even win 4 games against the Knicks.
Right. I will say it's not going to be a sweep. I pray to God the Thunder win games 1 and 2, whoever they play. Then it'll be the biggest bet of the postseason for me, game 3, on whoever they're playing, the East team. We saw that happen with Minnesota win by 40. I don't think the Thunder are good enough to withstand that sort of desperation of a team at home coming home. I think I would do alt lines. I'm kicking myself for not doing alt lines on Minnesota in game 3. When you have these young teams and this inexperience and a good enough team that can be better than Thunder, those are the situations you want. I'm really mad at myself for that.
I like the fact that you keep mentioning too that it's really tough for these NBA teams, whether experienced, young, new coach, old coach, veterans, rookies, whatever, to play 3 great games in a row and cover 3 great games in a row, especially in the playoffs when you got these short turnarounds back and forth. It's not like a long road trip. It's not a 5-game homestand. It's back and forth to each team's home arena, and it's really tough to sustain it over 3 games. And that's a great point when everyone's, oh, the series is over, and then it's not. They're gonna come back and win that 3rd game after the 2 dominant performances. The other team's gonna come back. So that is a great spot, and that might be something to look at, when it comes to game 3 in the finals.
I mean, best case example of that was in the first round. The Pistons lost games 3 and 4 at home. So the Knicks had a 3-1 lead going back home. Everyone's assuming they're going to roll, and I'm like, be careful there. and the Pistons won Game 5 in the Garden. A young team that really only had one really good player, down 3-1. Most teams fold, but it's really hard to just what it takes to cross the finish line and get those wins, especially on the road back to back. It just takes that much more to eliminate a team. So, all right, let's get to the W. But before we do that, I want to remind people about prop packs. Tear into the action with Bet Rivers prop packs. Place the same game parlay of at least $10 on any NBA game to receive a prop pack, which can win you boosts and bonus credits. If the target score on your prop pack card hits during the game, you win the prize indicated on the card. Head to the Bet Rivers app now to tear in to the action. And that's obviously for game 6 tomorrow. We have 5 games in the WNBA tonight. I gave out a pick, a full unit play yesterday. I liked it that much. Number has indicated I might be on the right side here with the Fever now 12-point home favorites over the Connecticut Sun, who are the only remaining winless team in the W. Fever, of course, without Caitlin Clark. I had a unit play at -11. I think it's a desperation sort. It's early in the season, obviously, but you're going to have a desperate team off another day of practice, adjusting to life without Clark. Colson's still the point guard, but I think all these all stars, the other 3 all stars from last year that are on this lineup, are going to really sort of figure this out and play well. I like the first half -7 even. I think they absolutely open a can on this Connecticut team, which might not even have Marina Mabrey, their second best player. I think she's a game time decision or something like that. But this Connecticut team's awful, truly awful. I think they're the worst team in the league. And you're involved in this game as well, Chris.
Well, yeah, I was taking a look at this game. I noticed that Caitlin Clark was out, or, she got the injury in the quad, and it was tough for the first game without her to be on the road. So they kind of had a little bit of a tough effort. They weren't able to get that regular offense that they usually have going. The number one option now is Kelsey Mitchell, and they have Bonner, Howard, and Boston, but none of them were really able to get going and get that big high scoring game. So I was looking at under first, but then I think I'm going to go with just the Sun team total under. This team has played 2 road games this year. They're only averaging 62.5 points a game on the road. And, this is kind of home cooking for Indiana. They're coming back home. First game without Caitlin Clark at home. I really think they put up a good effort. I don't know. You're saying it's like a desperate situation, but I mean, it kind of is. If you look at the
Have
standings,
to win against this bad team. They
yeah, yeah,
can't mess around because she's going to miss. She might be out a month. It's evaluated in 2 weeks, right? She's out at least 2. You can't mess around with a team like this.
yeah, you have to win this game. And if you kind of look at the standings, there's already 3 teams that are 2 of them are undefeated, 5-0, and then 4-1. In the standings, and you're 2 and 3. You're at the bottom of the league. You definitely have to win this game. I think you'll get a great defensive effort. I'm not sure how good they're going to be on offense without Caitlin Clark moving the ball. That's obviously an intricate part of their offense. So that's why I'm just going to look for a good effort. I'm going to go under the team total 62.5 for the Sun.
71. It was 72.5, 71.5.
Excuse me,
But I know
sorry.
you were saying
No,
their
no,
average. Yeah.
no, that's I'm going, 72 and a
What
half.
they're averaging.
Yeah, I'm the average.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
only,
dude.
only average.
I think that's a
62.
great look. Stephanie White is a very good coach, and to the point where she was a broadcaster during the NBA playoffs recently. She understands all the X's and O's. She's challenged her team because she thinks their weakness or their kryptonite is other teams being more physical against them. Atlanta did that in their home loss to the Dream. And the Liberty did some of that in that loss last Saturday. But Tina Charles can only do so much. She's a veteran. She's running on fumes a little bit. Her stat lines are pretty bad in the 2 road games that she's had. And then she's had to go against other like quality bigs, and she'll face Aaliyah Boston here. I think the Sun are extremely limited. And that's if Mabry's out or Nelson Adota, who's also a starter, who's a game time decision. I think they're really thin. I mean, Anisha Morrow is like a rookie. She's okay, but she's going to have an adjustment period here. And I don't think it's coming in this game. So I think the Sun are poorly coached. Look, they got rid of everyone from last year. They're probably going to be the worst record this year because the expansion Valkyries look okay. Some of the other team and the Mystics, you said the Fever struggled in their first game. I think the Mystics deserve some credit for that. They're well coached. And I think this is just a great spot to back the Fever. The number looks big, and I know a pro better who took plus 12.5 when the market got there, but I think this has beat down written all over it. So I'll stick with my 1 unit on the Fever. I do like the first half -7 a little bit. At Bet Rivers, there's some juice at -122, but I'm involved enough. The Fever have let me down a little bit, so I need them. But I'm backing your I like your team total under. I think that's a really, really sharp play. There's 4 other games on the docket. One thing to note, the Mystics, their head coach, Sidney Johnson's attending his daughter's, I believe, graduation, so he's not gonna be there. His odds for coach of the year have gone from 60 to 1 to like 6 to 1. They've been the biggest surprise probably so far. Liberty were 17-point favorites last night, escaped with a late rally and win. So they have a little bit of a tough challenge in Washington. We'll keep an eye on Jonquel Jones's status there. The Dream and Storm, always a tough trip up in Seattle, the Pacific Northwest. Seattle's calling card is defense, but Atlanta's calling card is offense. So I think that's an interesting game. Lynx Mercury is a game you want to talk about. Lynx, who have the MVP betting favor with Caitlin Clark's injury with Nafisa Collier, they're undefeated still. They're 4-point road chalk here.
Yeah, the Fisa Collier, MVP candidate, obviously the favorite now, 26.8 points a game. That's pretty impressive for WNBA standards. 7.8 rebounds as well. I was looking to find a rebound prop on her, but I was unable to find it. Just as I was doing a little research that Mercury tend to allow a lot more rebounds, and she's been all over the glass, 7.8, like I mentioned. I'd like the over in this game. Sometimes when you get these two better teams, you see that on TNT in the NBA. You get a later game. The two great teams and two stars, two Sabali, two for Mercury, 19.8 points a game. I just like the over. Both of these teams average over 80 points a game. The Lynx at 86.2, Mercury 80.4. I think over 158 has a good shot here. When you get two stars coming together, two teams with winning records, no one wants to lay down. They want to show their best. I think it's a later game. I like the over in this one. I think both teams get to 80 points.
I think Phoenix is well coached. Now, Cheryl Reeve, the coach of Minnesota, is the reigning coach of the year. She's also the Olympic coach. She knows what she's doing. This Minnesota team, coming off a narrow win, Wes earlier in the week touched on it. Kayla McBride's first game back. They're at full strength. They go 5 out. They have such an interesting offense. You mentioned Collier. She's a baby Jokic, I call her. In fact, she gets the ball in the paint, can also shoot threes. It's impossible to speed her up. That's where she reminds me of Jokic a lot. She moves at her own speed, keeps defenders off balance, money around the hoop. She also crashes the boards, as you alluded to. I think it's going to be a really good game. I hate that the Mercury are without Kalia Copper, who's a hooper and Olympian herself. She'll get back healthy, make this Mercury team really solid, but they do have a 1-2 punch right now that makes things interesting with Satu Sabali and, of course, Alyssa Thomas, who had 15 assists in the last game. I think they're going to attack. Minnesota's weakness, because they just play 5 out. They don't rebound that great as a team. They're rebounding, but they just bomb threes and they back cut and slip screen you to death for layups. It's going to be a really good game. I can certainly get behind that over. That's, I think, a really sharp play. The more I think about it. But I think they're all really interesting games. And then I don't trust the Aces right now. Kelsey Plum's return to Vegas. I think she'll eat. I think 25 plus points is a good prop there, but I can't get involved there. I just don't know what I'm getting with the Aces. I think they're a work in progress, but I trust Becky Hammond to get involved. So I'm just sticking with the Fever, the full unit play I gave out minus 11 yesterday. I think the market's going to continue to go up. I'm expecting a big performance, but I like your 2 plays, Chris. I think you're going to get into this WNBA thing.
Yeah, if I keep winning them, I sure am. Well,
That's right.
you can find angles in anything if you do the research and look for good spots, and hopefully we get home with these two.
Yeah, 1-0 so far on this show. You had the over and the Dream. Remember, they brought in a coach who's very analytically driven with three-pointers. So I'm actually really curious to see what gives when the Dream go to Seattle, storm their calling cards defense. So that either is a really high total or really low total. I'm very curious to see how that total plays out. You have one force of offense versus another force of defense. So I'm curious to see how that all plays out. All right, man. Great stuff as always. We appreciate you joining us on the road. I love that you had to go to Vegas because you're authentic. You're making wagers back home to San Diego, now to your original home of Boston. I'll be back in Vegas next week. We just want to remind everyone, Betting Weekly Fast Break, Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. And then also recently launching part of the Bet Rivers Network, Betting Weekly Hardball, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Chris also a part of that as we dissect the baseball card every single weekday throughout the rest of the summer. We have a game 6 in the East. Will we have a game 7? We'll find out tomorrow night. We'll discuss basketball one way or another on Monday when we return. So for Chris Macero and everyone behind the scenes who does such an awesome job, producing, graphics, you name it. I'm Doug Kazarian. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday.